Hey folks, for those of you who haven't used a telescope before, we're going to go through some real basics of operation. This is the telescope you're going to be using. It's a cheap plastic telescope which costs about 50 bucks and is vastly better than anything Galileo would have ever had access to. It is roughly about the same size. If you look at the main objective here, it's what's called a refractor telescope. It has a lens on the front of it. It's about 50 millimeters wide, about 2 inches. This is roughly what Galileo had in his best telescope, but the lens here is substantially better than anything he would have been able to get. So using one of these things is actually really quite straightforward, but just a couple of folks, when I've done this before, have gotten confused about a few things, so I'm going to show you how that all works. First thing you got to do is attach it to a tripod, and the tripod itself has a plate on the top of it. With this little cork plate right here. There's a lever on the top of the tripod. You push this over and pull out the plate. Then there's a hole on the bottom of the telescope, and there's a little screw on the bottom of the plate. You put the two of them together, screw it in, push the tab down because otherwise it won't sink back in. And then if you sort of slide it in, you put the one edge forward like this, slide it in, press down, and you'll hear it go click. Now it's locked into the tripod, and the whole tripod's locked into one spot. So that's how you go ahead and do this. Now, for actually controlling the tripod, there's the handle over here. This will move it up and down, side to side. If you want to adjust how quickly they move, you can change either one of these two knobs here. If you turn them one way, it'll get a little bit easier to move. If you turn the other way, it'll get a little bit harder. Don't turn them all the way to make it really floppy, because then it won't stay in one place, and you want it to eventually stay in one place. But you can make it a little bit easier if it's a little jerky to move it and all the rest. This is the primary focus button here. So what you'll do is just go ahead and move this back and forth until you reach focus. Here's a little finder scope. This guy is already focused, and as I said, I've sighted them in so they're roughly in the correct place. This will give you a little bit of a wider angle view when you're actually looking for a target. So the easiest way to do this is you sort of find something that you want to look at, point it in the general direction, just sort of sight down the tube, and then look through this guy until you can find it, and then you can go ahead and try to find it in the main objective. For the main objective itself, what we have here is, as I said, there's this draw tube which allows you to do the focusing. Then there's a little diagonal here. This actually will turn the image so that you can actually look at it upright, which makes things a little bit easier for you. And what you'll do in this case is there's no actual eyepiece in here right now. The telescope comes with two of them. There is a 20 millimeter and an 8 millimeter. This is the 20. Start with this guy. The 20 millimeter eyepiece is the wide angle eyepiece. In this case, it provides a reasonable field of view and about 18-fold magnification. You just put it into the tube here. You tighten the screw. Make sure you tighten the screw, because otherwise it might fall out if you push it all the way up. And then go ahead and focus it in here wherever you want to get it. There is a 8 millimeter eyepiece as well, which is also included in here. This one, if you take a look at it, has a much narrower aperture in the beginning. It has a much narrower field of view, but it gives you about 45-fold magnification as opposed to 20. If you take one of them out, or you can stick the other one in, they're close to the same place in focus. They're not exactly the same, but you should be roughly where focus is, so you can then sort of go back and forth. When you are trying to actually focus for the first time, I encourage you guys to use the moon to start with. The reason for that is the moon's really easy to find in the sky. You can take a look at it. It's really obvious. You don't have to go hunting for a specific star. And then just go ahead, focus in on that. And once you have it, you're basically locked in, and then you don't need to change it after that. That's pretty much all there is to it. These are very simple telescopes, and all the rest. You can go ahead and play around with one of them when we get out there. But these will do just fine, and they'll show you more than Galileo could have ever hoped to see.